Hi guys, my name is Katie Scala, and I will be speaking on behalf of our group with Steve Petrie, Jennifer Steinert, Dan Cavano, Noelle Baumberger, and Stephanie Frost. I will be introducing to you a 10-day unit in English Language Arts for 5th grade on environmentalism in literature. We will start the unit with an introduction to use of language in literature and environmentalism in literature. Students will be able to describe how language can be used to describe things in literature with a Do Now assessment at the beginning of the lesson. Students will also be able to explain the author's point of view and can be identified in their work. The class will read the poem Loons Speak by Karen Schrag and discuss how literature can describe different social and science issues like environmentalism. Individual work, they will give 3 points on how the poem discusses environmental concerns. The modification for this lesson is that IEP students will not be required to identify the 3 items in the individual work, but instead identify 1 to 2 with applicable relevance. The assessment for this lesson is that students will give examples of how stories, movies, TV shows, etc. can shed light on different ideas or causes. They will describe one cause or issue the student would like to write about. Lesson 2 will be a discussion of metaphor and simile, where students will be able to identify metaphors and similes and define both simile and metaphor by the end of the lesson. Students will read a poem on metaphors and a poem with similes. After the poem readings, the students will do group work where they complete 5 examples of metaphors and similes. Groups will then present their favorite metaphor and simile to the class, and the class will vote on whether they liked the metaphor or the simile better. Modifications for this lesson is that IEP students will have prompted responses for their metaphor and simile examples in both the pre-assessment and post-assessment activities. The exit slip will be that the students will complete a metaphor simile worksheet. Students will choose between like or as and determine if the statement is a metaphor or a simile. In Lesson 3, the students will begin to read and discuss the short story, The Lorax. Students will be able to show comprehension of the story. Students will be broken up into literacy groups or literature circles, with students being assigned various roles, each role having a specific job to be completed during the duration of the class period. A modification for this is that students with IEPs will be placed in a group with a teacher and or in-class support personnel in order to prompt discussion and ensure understanding of key concepts. The assessment for this lesson is an exit ticket where the students write 2 to 3 sentences summarizing what is happening in the story thus far. Lesson 4, students will continue reading and finish the short story, The Lorax. Students will be able to show understanding of the lessons being taught in the short story and show comprehension of the story. Students will again be broken into literature circles, and the modification will be that students with IEPs will be placed in a group with a teacher and or in-class support personnel like Lesson 3. The assessment for this lesson is that students will answer the following questions to show understanding of one of the story's lessons. Why does the Lorax speak for the trees? Why is it important to speak up for others? Have you ever spoken up for someone else? And has someone else ever spoken up for you? A modification for this exit ticket is students with IEPs will do 2 of the 4 exit ticket questions in order to have time to give answers. In Lessons 5 and 6, students will be able to identify the elements of a short story or creative writing piece. We will introduce elements of a short story: character, setting, conflict, plot, and theme. Our Do Now students will create their own fictional character using descriptive language with an environmental theme. And for differentiation, students will create their own environmental hero in text or drawing. The theme of their story must include the elements of conservation as discussed in class prior. The assessment will be that students will present their characters to the class describing their origin and purpose. They will explain how their character approaches the cause of protecting or saving the environment. Their presentation will be 10 minutes each. In Lesson 7, students will be able to create a dramatic skit on environmentalism, making their classroom peers aware of their cause as it relates to the Lorax. They will create outlines with character dialogue which represents their individual group themes. Rough draft to be peer edited, then teacher edited. Each group presents their skit to the class to deliver their message. Scoring rubric and class response to evaluate performance. Differentiated evaluation will be that students are graded on fluency and expressive interpretation. Scoring rubric is to be used to quantify results. In Lesson 8, students will begin the setup for the What's in the Air experiment. Students will be able to conduct an experiment to analyze local air quality. The assessment for this unit is a Kahoot quiz on key concepts expressed in the lesson and activity. In Lesson 9, students will watch the Lorax movie. Students will be able to identify 4 ways to compare and contrast the movie and the text as their exit ticket. A modification for this lesson is that students with IEPs will be able to identify 2 components instead of 4. Lesson 10 is our final assessment for this unit. Students will conclude the What's in the Air experiment. Students will be graded on the completeness of their lab notes and their answers to the following extension questions. What causes allergens in the air? What allergens are in the air we breathe? Do some places have more allergens than other places? What health problems do allergens cause? How does this experiment tie into the Lorax? Scoring rubric is used to quantify results. Modifications for this lesson is that IEP students will only be required to answer 3 of the 5 questions. This concludes our 10-day unit on environmentalism in literature for 5th grade English Language Arts. Thanks for listening.